channel headquartered in Singapore. And on stage are my guests. First off, Suman Bery, he is chairman of NITI Aayog. That is India's top government think tank, I've been corrected, and 28 years, both at the World Bank, at Shell, as chief economist. And next to him is Muhammad Fouzul Kabir Khan. He is an advisor to the Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources in Bangladesh. You have a few words, Mr. Khan.
Shall I go with the statement or?
Okay.
Yes, please. Mr. Moderator, my fellow panelists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. Let me start by thanking the Government of India for organizing the third edition of Energy Week. I also wish to extend my thanks for inviting me to this important event. Today, we are here to respond to the pressing issue of our time, looking for sustainable, scalable, equitable, and affordable solutions to meet the acute global energy needs. Indeed, energy is the key to powering our future. It uplifts lives, empowers communities and individuals, helps reduce poverty, and drives economic growth. In 2015, the world committed to ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy for all. While much progress has been made, we are clearly off track in achieving SDG 7. At the current rate, some 660 million people would still be without electricity by 2030. Here comes the issue of energy equity. Developing nations continue to struggle to achieve universal access and clean energy transitions. Weak infrastructure, underfunding, as well as low and unequal access to reliable and clean energy exacerbated the energy situation. Moreover, international financial support for clean energy in these countries continues to decline. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2000, the country's efforts to bridge the domestic energy divide began with the installation of 4.5 million solar home system in hard-to-reach areas. Under a project run by Infrastructure Development Company Limited, which I had the privilege of being the CEO. ITCOL also installed 70,000 domestic biogas plants and 4.6 million improved cook stoves to meet the cooking needs in rural areas. As a nation, we have witnessed how access to energy transforms lives. Bangladesh achieved access to electricity for 100% of its population. Today's Bangladesh's installed capacity is roughly 150% of the current peak demand. Though basic access to electricity has improved with some considerable success, the energy crisis in Bangladesh continues to cast a long shadow over socio-economic development. Today, inequality persists as the people in urban areas remain on the privileged side in terms of access to electricity. Climate change and extreme weather events continues to undermine our energy security. This even jeopardizes our renewable energy sources and supplies. In addition, our achievements in the energy sector were marred by abundance of competition in energy sector procurements, failure to ensure fuel supply for additional generation capacity, inadequate attention to balanced development of transmission and distribution networks, and rent-seeking and cronyism at an unprecedented scale. According to the white paper produced by an independent commission, the electricity generation sector has suffered losses of at least $6 billion due to irregularities and illegal gratification by the past regime. Our interim government has taken initiative to correct the policy failures by restoring open competition, ensuring fuel supply, initiating tariff renegotiation, addressing transmission and distribution bottlenecks, and putting an end to cronyism. We hope that all these measures will help make the energy sector financially sustainable and technically viable. Drawing for our first-hand experience, I wish to put forth a few proposals to address the challenges of closing the energy access gap. Developed countries should come forward and cooperate with the developing nations in transferring technology for green, environment-friendly, and clean energy solutions. Meaningful partnership across governments, industries, and industrial organizations need to be reinforced by sharing knowledge, expertise, and resources to develop and implement clean scalable, and affordable energy solutions. Investors, donors, partners, and multilateral financial institutions need to heavily invest in developing countries, including constructing transmission network and renewable energy infrastructure. Fourth, energy trade with preferential approach may be encouraged among countries within a region where taxes and tariffs may be exempted. Transparency and open competition in public procurement need to be ensured to protect the poor from energy scarcity and tariff increase. Mostly, we need regional cooperation to address our energy problem. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the clock is ticking, and we have once in a generation opportunity to ignite meaningful actions for a more sustainable future. Let's put our collective efforts in navigating the challenges around energy crisis and unlocking a brighter future for all. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan, for that short introduction, and we will certainly be grilling you on the points that you brought up. So the topic today, ladies and gentlemen, is closing the energy access gap, meeting the world's growing equity challenge. So let me set the stage. We are talking about the traditional energy trilemma, which is sustainability, security, and affordability. Now that has shaped global energy policies for years, but with increasing calls to include social justice and energy equity, well, how should governments and private sectors actually recalibrate their priorities in order to address this expanded so-called energy quadrilemma? Well, that's what the guests are here to answer. Gentlemen, let's start off by talking about national and regional equity. Mr. Bery first. Now, India has made significant strides in expanding its energy access. Yet there are disparities between urban centers and rural communities. What lessons can India offer in terms of balancing this rapid energy growth with equitable distribution? I mean, how does NITI Aayog, for example, prioritize energy equity in terms of national policy making?
Well, let me first make the point that India is a federation, and a lot of the action is at the level of the states. It's a complicated federation, but we have what we call centrally sponsored schemes, which provide cost sharing for certain national initiatives, and clearly electrification is one of those. Just to refer a little bit both to what the other speaker had to say and what you raised, it is one of the, I think, significant achievements of this government that the gap between access to electricity between urban and rural areas has been narrowed substantially, and also that the availability of power, because we must in all of this not forget that it's not, power is not just a single thing. The quality of power is also important. So we've made progress on this. But I think when you talk about regional differences, the fact of the matter remains that there are significant differences in the per capita income of states, and access to high quality power is very important to bridge that gap, because we tend to think of power as a consumer good, but it is also extremely important for livelihoods. And so you've asked the question, what is it we can do to narrow that gap? And I think the point is to have these national schemes. But I also want to say that access and affordability are linked. For us, access has been a question of getting power to the village, but then after that there is the issue of last mile connectivity, where, as it were, personal means also arise, but also that if you like, the a whole range of other interventions are needed to raise per capita income, and at higher per capita income, obviously, the utilization of electricity would go up. Okay?
Following up, the International Energy Agency estimates that a third of the world's population still use conventional biomass in the domestic sector. We're talking coal, we're talking charcoal, we're talking agricultural waste, we're even talking animal dung. And this conventional biomass in domestic sector has been particularly sticky feature of India's energy basket. Would you agree? And so what's the government's strategy in terms of dealing with this issue over the medium term?
Well, again, affordability comes into it, but so firstly, electrification. If the electricity is not there, then you have no alternatives, and it has to be affordable. So that has been the big push for electrification to substitute, as it were, traditional biomass. Let me just make the point, though, that certain kinds of traditional biomass, particularly animal dung, we have been investing a great deal of attention into making this a source of biogas. The other point that I'd make is that physical access is very important. And so making sure that the transmission lines go out so that people can rely on on electricity is a way of displacing it. But I would just add one point here, I'm sure we'll get to it later, which is that a separate but very important initiative has been to remove, if you like, traditional fuels from the kitchen and replace them with LPG, and that has been done successfully, 100 million households, I believe, largely so as to deal with the issue of indoor air pollution, which is associated with the burning of wood in kitchens and indoors.
So affordability then leads access to sustainability.
Well, access first, but then it has to be affordable access, both for the last mile connectivity and also so that people, are able to pay for the electricity. And that's where we get into a very complicated and vexed issue of how is it that you, induce people to pay. And there's a particular issue in India that agricultural households typically do not have a metered power, although that is changing. And so to the extent a fairly large part of India's, it's not all farmers are poor, but ensuring that tariffs for the rural sector are cover costs is something that is politically very salient.
Okay. Mr. Khan, maybe you can share with us Bangladesh's experience. Bangladesh is recognized for its innovative approach to energy access, particularly in the electrification through solar home systems. However, challenges still remain in terms of scaling up these solutions sustainably. So how is Bangladesh actually addressing this tension between expanding access rapidly while at the same time ensuring long-term affordability?
I think on this issue, let's go back to the 4 A's of energy security. So first comes the access. So in terms of access, we've done remarkably well. We have 100% access either through conventional grid or through off-grid solution. That's good news. But then the bad news is that the availability of electricity itself, we have the lines, but the actual electricity coming through from the grid, there we have not been as successful. And the reason for that is that our short of primary energy. Because to produce electricity, you need gas, you need coal, or you need LNG, or some kind of a primary fuel. So our domestic gas reserve is depleting. We are also going for onshore and offshore bidding to augment gas supply. But as you know, anything to do with the development of primary energy is time consuming. You have to do the 2D, 3D surveys, then you do the exploration, which could be hit or a miss. And then once you have found the reserve, then you need process plants, and then you need the gas connection. So we are working on that. And then so that with access, not only access, but the availability also increases with ensuring. Because we also have enough generation capacity. Is 150% of our peak demand. But some of these plants are unutilized because of lack of primary fuel. So once we are able to augment this supply of primary fuel, then we'll be able to make more electricity available to our rural population. But then there comes the issue of affordability. Because you see, since we in the short run we have energy shortage, we have to rely on imported LNG, for example, imported coal, for example. And prices of those inputs are variable and often rising. So which means that the generation costs are going to go up higher. So will you be able to pass this to the consumer? That is the challenge as outlined by the earlier speaker, the chairman of NITI Aayog. That is where the challenge is. But fortunately, we have found an area that there are in the power and energy sector, there was a lot of rent seeking over the last 15, 16 years. We contracted what you call very electricity at high, exorbitant prices. Our energy contracts were also, because of cronyism and rent seeking, was higher than they should be. So what we are doing now is that we are redoing that where possible. We are renegotiating them where possible. And hopefully we'll be able to bring down the costs of electricity generation and energy procurement. And hopefully we have not raised, in the past 6 months, we have not raised the price of electricity, and we are trying to do it through reduction of cost, and we are doing that through open competition, open and transparent competition. And this gives you immediate dividends. So for example, there was a curtail on imports of liquid fuel. Only 3-4 people companies would supply fuel. So there are some restrictions so we lifted those restrictions. Now there are 12 companies participated. And then we had a saving of about 800 crore taka on half-yearly basis, leading to 1,600 crore taka on an annual basis. So we are now addressing as you know that this has two sides, prices, two sides. One is the cost side. We are trying to bring the cost of energy procurement, energy distribution, transmission distribution, and hopefully we'll be able to keep it affordable. But it's a huge task.
I want to follow up on, you said keeping energy prices stable and possibly with targets to bring it down. Tell us about rates where they were 10 years ago, where they are now, and where you hope to bring them to.
You see, the way we look at it, ours is an interim government. So we are, one of our tasks is to stabilize the economy. So we are trying to do that. And also our hope to keep the energy sector as a whole in better shape than, as I already indicated, we had a serious problem. So we hope that we'll be able to bring it to a level where our energy security would be better. The access, as I said, we've already achieved 100% access, so there's no issue there. But on availability, we'll make, because there is a disparity in availability of power in rural and urban area, so that will be able to do that. And then also keep it affordable. So we are doing that. So by initiating a strategic policy reform, we would like to put the sector in a place where it can go on a growth trajectory. Ours is a recovery job now. We are trying to restore basic economic principles in the sector.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is balancing fossil fuels and renewables in the energy transition. We've talked a lot about affordability and sustainability. Many developing countries still rely on fossil fuel because it's affordable energy, yet there is this shift towards decarbonization. I guess the question I have for both of you gentlemen is how policymakers can actually strike a balance between meeting immediate energy needs through conventional sources, while at the same time transitioning to a more sustainable, renewable future. Mr. Bery.
Well, this is more proof of concept than reality, but in principle, if you like, the renewable revolution, particularly the solar revolution, and to some extent hydrogen, could support much more decentralized mechanisms of power distribution. We have a large program which is on rooftop solar with the incentive that households would get a subsidy or would be able to get power for free. The Prime Minister has sometimes asked why it's not possible, because we are blessed with sunshine, as is Bangladesh, why it's not possible to have decentralized hydrogen as well. So I think your question was about big power, but I just wanted to say that I don't think we've really fully exploited the potential of microgrids and community-based renewable power. But to come to the, as it were, the more industrial level, I think the dilemma we find ourselves in, and I don't know if Bangladesh is similar, is that there is a great deal of pressure, as was indicated, to keep household tariffs low. What this then means is that there's a cross-subsidy to the household from, and the industrial sector pays a higher price. And this gets in the way of really what we need longer term, which is competitive industrialization. So I wanted to say that given this background, the issue is, does adding renewables, including the associated distribution costs, have a tendency to raise aggregate prices? And if it does, who pays? And is it at the expense of the competitiveness of your industrial sector? And finally, I would make the point, because it's sometimes misunderstood. India has just said that it will contract as much as 80 gigawatts of additional thermal power, which will be coal. And, you know, this has raised eyebrows abroad, but there's a simple reason for that, and that is that coal is baseload power, renewables are, you know, they depend on the time of day and the season, and you need baseload power for when renewables go up and down. And it's not yet the case that renewables together with storage are actually cheaper than fossil. We think that we will get there. I think that what has happened with solar is remarkable, and I think where we are is not what we anticipated at Shell. And finally, I'd make the point that there's a different kind of vulnerability of supply chains when you're talking about renewables. So it's a very complicated set of forces and ultimately political that governments have to manage. To have the base load, not to be vulnerable, too vulnerable on things like batteries, etc. I'm not sure we've got it right, but what I can say is that on the basis of what we committed as our nationally determined contributions and the trajectory that we have on attaining net zero by 2070, we are on track.
So it's still traditional fossil fuel for now, but you're working
No,
towards
we've added, we have a commitment of 500 gigawatts of non-fossil capacity by 2030, which is a combination of hydro, nuclear, wind, solar, and within that there's a sub-target for solar, and we are on track to do those. And I think we have the third largest solar fleet in the world at the moment. So we are moving, but there's a big difference between a country like the US, where energy demand is flat, and a country like India, where energy demand is growing at 6%. So at the margin, at the increment, renewables are going flat out, but they don't provide the assured base load that you need for the country to modernize.
Mr. Khan, Bangladesh has a high potential for solar given its geographical location.
Yes and no. Because you see, while the solar radiation is pretty good, but you see, you have to remember that Bangladesh is a small country with a scarcity of land. And also this solar and renewable technologies are land intensive. You could build a 1,000 megawatt power plant in a few acres of land, but to get the same amount of power from renewable energy as solar, you need hundreds of acres of land, and which we do not have. So that's what we are working on, two legs, both fossil fuel and also renewable energy. So what we're looking at, rooftop is a very promising aspect. We have factories that has enough rooftop. And also we have what you call this river banks, and also we have this house, what you call lakes, and also we have this seasides. So these are, and also there are government lands, and also, so we are what you call using those for generation of solar electricity. So initially our focus was on household level solar home system. Now we are moving on to grid connected solar system, and we are trying to develop a group of what you call, instead of electricity consumer, we are looking at prosumers who not only not only consume electricity, but also produce. To this end, we have introduced this net metering system. So you could, when you have excess supply of electricity generated at home, you could sell it to the grid and then draw it. But as has been mentioned, renewable energy also brings in challenges related to intermittency on the one hand. And also this also brings a challenge for the grid, because then frequency maintenance becomes stable, because you know that the demand between supply and demand is matched at about 50 hertz. So, you know, when you have a sudden drop during the evening of a huge amount of what you call solar, if you have huge amount of solar energy, that creates a challenge for the grid because you have to maintain the grid. So there we also introducing what you call BESS, battery energy storage system, which could, offset this intermittency problem. But we are going to full throttle on renewable energy because of the ongoing primary energy gas scarcity, their expense, and also the logistical challenges of importing them. So we're going full throttle. Unfortunately, it didn't receive the attention it should have received. So now we are hoping to contract out within a year about 10,000 megawatt of solar electricity.
So one of Bangladesh's strategies is actually to import electricity from abroad.
Yes, that's also ongoing because you see we have grids established with India for imports of electricity from India. We've also recently started importing electricity from Nepal via India. So that's another area we are looking. And also you see there are regional country differences. At some point, at some time, the demand, for example, with the import from Nepal, it's only for 6 months because in winter they cannot supply electricity because their heating demand goes up. But so they are going to supply electricity in the summer months. On the other hand, Bangladesh winter, the electricity demand comes down very, very substantially. So what we could do is we could export to Nepal. So this is the way to go. That because of the complementarities of the neighboring economies, we can help each other, and that way we can also get a lower price through economies of scale of production.
Okay. Very quickly, the last topic is on financing the energy transition with equity in mind. Now, statement, declining global financial support threatens equitable transition. The declining global financial commitments at COP29 for climate action really highlights the growing challenge of developing countries like India, Bangladesh to fund their energy transitions and climate resilience strategies. Will India be able to meet the shortfall in funding?
Two quick things, because I want to leave time for my colleague. First, India, has had a tradition of private sector investment. The short point I want to make is that this is largely connected with, as it were, the stability of regulation, and also connected with the solvency of the distribution companies at the state level. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that funding is there if there is a credible distribution company and a credible regulatory framework. We made an important shift 20 years ago, about the time I first came to India, from generation being entirely in the public sector to a series of contracting innovations which attracted private capital. And on the whole, we're not doing badly. I would say for a country of India's scale, looking to, as it were, non-market sources of external financing is unlikely. We would much rather that it went to smaller countries who may not have the same resources we do.
Mr. Khan?
Yes, actually here the challenge is, to bring the renewable energy, move it from the fringe to the mainstreaming it. Because remember that it started with the yuppie generation. So you live in the hills and then you have a solar panel, and then it used to be $5 per watt peak for a solar cell. So now it has come down to 20, 30 cents, So that's the good news, that technology is being helpful. But the bottom line is no external country or external institution will solve your energy problem. Because it is the liability, the responsibility of the country to provide. Because our constitution itself provides that we are constitutionally mandated to provide electricity for the growth. So that's what we have to do. So that's what, as suggested, that what we are doing, we are improving the regulatory framework. We are aligning the incentive structure by lowering tariff, by introducing this net metering system. So, and I also believe, I also come from finance background. I think if you have a properly structured project, a bankable project, there are enough what you call domestic and also private financing available. So we have been relying too long for multilateral sources of funding. So as expected, this is drying up and will continue to dry up further. But the good thing is that domestic financing or private commercial financing is picking up the gap.
Well, it does sound positive that there's going to be more private partnerships with governments. One final thought before we close. If you had to prioritize one immediate action over the next 5 years to close the energy equity gap, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. I think it really would be a question of. I'm a little stuck. Let me ask my
Mr. Khan.
partner.
I think to me the priority is to bring the primary energy cost low. That through either domestic exploration or through imports. And the way to keep import prices low is through transparent and open procurement. Because unless you have that, the energy prices could be high. And then, so for our priority is to open energy procurement up to, and also procure it in a transparent manner so that the energy import cost or energy extraction cost is lower. So we are working on the cost side. And then, and also, because the other thing that will be helpful is with the scale. So when you expand renewable energy more, you get economies of scale, and also this also we need to address this intermittency issue so that the stability is maintained, and also not only you supply power, but you also supply a quality power, maintaining the voltage, so we are working on those for the development of infrastructure. So that will lead to a better, not only make electricity more available, but the quality of electricity that people will receive will be better.
Okay, and if we're in the penalty shootout in overtime, I would just say that putting a lot more effort into what I talked about earlier, which is community-based, decentralized power. This might be because, we've had 75 years of having all of this done by government, and there are lots of inefficiencies in that. The new technologies allow you to get away from that, and I think it's worth experimenting with them.
Okay. Well, audience, a well-deserved round of applause for my guests, for their thoughts and insights, and I hope that you have had one or two insights from this very inspirational discussion. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.